Trump just dropped this bombshell claiming that Turkey is behind everything that's going on in Syria right now. What the heck does that mean for all the tensions developing in the Middle East? Let's dig into it. Yo, welcome back, guys. Glad to have you. Yo, what did you guys think about Trump's statement? Is Turkey really behind this? And what does that mean for everything going on in the Middle East? I mean, we were all thinking it was Israel, the U.S., the State Department, CIA, all that. How does Turkey? We were talking about Turkey being a wild card, man. How does Turkey fit into all this, guys? You tell me. We got a video to get into. It's Trump the man himself saying it. This is crazy. Yo, if you guys like the content, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. Let's see what Trump the man himself had to say.
We have an army of 250,000 in Syria, and you had an army of 400,000. They have many more people than that. Turkey is a major force, by the way, and Erdogan is somebody I got along with great, but he has a major military force, and his has not been worn out with war. It hasn't been worn out with all of the other things. I mean, he's built a very strong, powerful army. And so we have 5,000 soldiers in between a 5 million person army and a 250,000 person army. And I asked the general, what do you think of that situation? He said, they'll be wiped out immediately. And I moved them out and I took a lot of heat. And you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing. I saved a lot of lives. Now we have 900. They put some back. But 900, if you're talking about two, now one of the sides has been essentially wiped out, but nobody knows who the other side is. But I do. You know who it is? Turkey. Okay? Turkey's the one behind it. He's a very smart guy. They've wanted it for thousands of years, and he got it. And those people that went in are controlled by Turkey. And that's okay. It's another way to fight. But no, I don't think that I want to have our soldiers killed. But I don't think that will happen now anyway, because the one side's been...
I'm thinking now, because we were talking yesterday and stuff's coming back to me. I'm thinking it was Turkey and NATO. I don't know. I don't think it was necessarily Turkey by themselves. I'm just getting the vibe. We were talking yesterday, and I'm thinking about how well equipped those guys were. I mean, maybe it's Turkey, because Turkey's got equipment. They make weapons. I mean, they do their thing. I'm not saying, it's just, it could have been overall NATO, I mean, Trump's not even in yet. He doesn't know what our State Department's necessarily involved in and what they're not,
Been decimated.
Mr. President, I want to ask you a question about the drones.
Are you concerned about more unrest in that region, or do you think it will calm?
Well, nobody knows what the final outcome is going to be in the region. Nobody knows who really the final. I believe it's Turkey, and I think Turkey is very smart. He's a very smart guy, and he's very tough. But Turkey did an unfriendly takeover without a lot of lives being lost. I can say that Assad was a butcher. What he did to children. You remember I attacked him with the 58 missiles.
Yeah, everything I'm hearing since the fall of the Assad regime is that was basically a gangster regime, another mafia regime. Man, it seems like between the CCP and Russia and everything, I mean, probably even Iran. I mean, when you think about it, because their relationship with all of these other actors in the region, I mean, it seems like we've got this cabal of mafia-run organizations, right? It's interesting. It's very interesting. It's another way of doing things. Is it any worse than globalist corporatism? I don't know. I can't necessarily say that it is.
Unbelievable missiles coming from ships 700 miles away, and every one of them hit their target. But I did that. That was the red line in the sand. Obama drew it, and then he refused to honor what he did. He said, if anybody goes across the red line, and Assad killed many more children after that, and Obama did nothing, but I did. I hit him with a lot of missiles. In fact, President Xi was sitting here the night he was in that dining room having chocolate cake. Remember the famous chocolate cake? But and that's when I explained what we were doing as the missiles were shot. And it was amazing as to precision, because every one of those missiles hit its target from a long distance away.
All right, he's digressing a little bit, but yo, Turkey, man. Turkey orchestrated the whole thing, I guess, man. Trump says Turkey orchestrated Assad's overthrow in Syria. Man, wild. U.S. President-elect said Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan conducted an unfriendly takeover of Syria without a lot of lives being lost, he said. I mean, relatively speaking, there really weren't. I mean, they kind of ran away and handed it over. Of Syria, which Turkey has wanted for thousands of years. Turkey controls the militants that ousted former Syrian director Bashar al-Assad. U.S. President-elect Trump said during a wide-ranging and at times incoherent press conference on Monday. Those people went in and are controlled by Turkey, he said during the event. His first press conference since winning the presidential election in November. And that's okay. That's another way to fight. In answer to a question about 900 troops currently in Syria, Trump began to speak of his decision to pull American soldiers out of the country during his last stint as president before getting sidetracked and talking about Turkey and its president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Hey, man, you know what? It's the whole point of this video. I'm glad he said it because, dude, come on. What are we not going to know? It's a very, thank you for telling us, Trump. Jeez, man. Now, here's the whole thing. They're going to try to act like Trump is Biden. Here we go. That's ridiculous. Come on. Turkey is a major force, by the way, he said. Erdogan is somebody I got along with great, but he has a major military force, and this has not been worn out with war. And his has not been worn out with war. He's built a very strong, very, very powerful army. Returning it to the question, he said, we had 5,000 soldiers in between a 5 million person army and a 250,000 person army. And I asked the general, what do you think of that situation? He said, they'll be wiped out immediately. And then I moved them out. And I took a lot of heat. And you know what happened? Nothing. I saved a lot of lives. Yo, that's a good way to put it, man. Now we have 900. They put some back. If you're talking about two, now one of those sides has been essentially wiped out, but nobody knows who the other side is. But I do. Turkey. I love the way he said that, dude. I asked if he was concerned about further unrest, and Trump said nobody knows what the final outcome is going to be in the region. Nobody knows who will rule in the final. I believe it will be Turkey. Turkey is very smart. Turkey's also a NATO ally. What are they going to do? What are you going to do? Go to war with a NATO ally? You know, it's very interesting because Turkey is very independent in terms of their geopolitical relationships, but they leverage that NATO membership, don't they? Hell yeah, dude. I don't blame them, man. In the world we live in today. But yo, this is my whole thing. This is my whole thing. This is what made me think. This is what this made me think of all this. All right. You guys remember back in 2003, and I know Al Jazeera, super biased, whatever. Look. You know, everything's biased. Everyone's got their own agenda, but that doesn't mean this wasn't a situation that is warranted paying attention to. You guys remember back in 2003, right? It came out about this 7-country plan that the U.S. had for the Middle East. Right? And so I wanted to get into that for a second because we got not only this article, but we got an official who was, I think, from the State Department or some sort of military official. He was a military official, and he saw these documents firsthand. And he came out and spoke on it firsthand right here, both in 2003 and in 2007. And so, you know, when I see all this happening, right, and I see everything died down in the Middle East 10, 15 years ago, okay, and now it's all bubbling back up. It's all bubbling back up in the perfect way. We were talking yesterday, right? 1984, Eurasia, East Asia, whatever that third one is. Should have Googled it before I started the video, whatever. Anyway, so we talking about that, right? And the Middle East is like their zone of permanent conflict, right? Where we all have proxy wars with each other, and now you get what I'm saying? Dude, well, I feel like this plays into it big time, right? Because it's almost like these oil fields are like these trading zones, and who knows whether it fits in. People talk about this greater Israel thing. I don't know anything about all that. I gotta look into all that. I don't know anything about all that. But dude, it's very interesting seeing this and then remembering back to 2003 and remembering this plan. And then I remember he said something, and he's going to say it. We're going to hear him say it himself. But he's talking to one of the generals, and he's like, why are we doing this? Why are we going to war with Iraq? And the general goes, I don't know, but now we're going to take out the whole region. And it's like, interesting, man. Who's behind this? What's the greater arc of history that we're living through right now, man? U.S. plans to attack 7 Muslim states. Presidential political hopeful General Wesley Clark says the White House devised a 5-year plan after 9/11 after the 9/11 strikes to attack 7 majority Muslim countries. And it's almost like they couldn't get support, and they tried to build things up all the way to 2011, right? And then it died down when Trump entered office, right? And then as soon as Biden enters office, all of a sudden we're fomenting. Things are building again. Things are popping off again. And it's like, what is going on with this, man? Well, it's just, it trips me out. It's weird. It gives this vibe of like contrived. Like why is this region? It seems contrived. That's what it is, and that's what weirds me out about it. A former commander of NATO forces in Europe Clark claims he met a senior military officer in Washington in November 2001 who told him the Bush administration was planning to attack Iraq first before taking action against Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Iran, Somalia, and Sudan. Yo, interesting, man, because it's almost like exactly the countries that we are threatening to bring into the greater conflict in the Middle East now. The general's allegations surfaced in a new book, The Clark Critique. What a terrible name. That's not the type of name that's going to withstand time, bro. Excerpts from which appear in the latest edition from the U.S. magazine Newsweek. Clark says after the 2011 September attacks in 2001, many Bush administration officials seemed determined to move against Iraq, invoking the idea of state censorship of terrorism, even though there was no evidence of Iraq's sponsorship of 9/11 whatsoever. Ousting Saddam Hussein promised a concrete, visible action, the general writes, dismissing it as a Cold War approach. Honestly, I think that this is a whitewash, to be honest with you. Clark criticizes the plan to attack 7 states, saying it targeted the wrong countries, ignored the real sources of terrorists, and failed to achieve the greater force of international law, and that it would bring a wider global support. I wonder who the real countries were. Probably Iran. But let's listen to the guy say it himself, because I think there's something to be said about this 7-year plan. All right, I think there's something to be said about it, and the fact that, man, what is it? Since the late '80s, early '90s, we've been revisiting this whole area over and over again, man. Come on, what's going on with this?
Is thinking.
What happened in 9/11 is we didn't have a strategy, we didn't have bipartisan agreement, we didn't have American understanding of it, and we had instead a policy coup in this country. A coup. A policy coup. Some hard-nosed people took over the direction of American policy, and they never bothered to inform the rest of us. I went through
I think it's a whitewash. I really think it's a whitewash when you frame it like that, because I mean, when you put it in the context of this whole greater neoliberal shift that's been happening since the early in the 20th century, and then you take into everything that's going on with Desert Storm and all of that. I mean, come on, it fit. And then you take George Bush Sr.'s foreign policy and how that set the stage perfectly for Bill Clinton's foreign policy, and then how that set the stage absolutely perfectly for George Bush Jr.'s foreign policy. And then Obama, Bush the third, perfect setup, and to foment all of this going on, man. And dude, it's a joke, man.
the Pentagon 10 days after 9/11. I couldn't stay away from Mother Army. I went back there to see Don Rumsfeld. I'd worked for him as a White House fellow in the 1970s. All this is in the book, and I said, am I doing okay on CNN? He said, yeah, fine. He said, I'm thinking about it. He says, I read your book, and he said, this is a book that talks about the Kosovo campaign, and he said, I just want to tell you, he said, nobody's going to tell us where or when we can bomb. Nobody. He said, I'm thinking of calling this a floating coalition. What do you think about that? I said, well, sir, thanks for reading my book, and, he said, thanks, that's all the time I've got. Really. And I went downstairs. I was leaving the Pentagon, and an officer from the Joint Staff called me into his office and said, I want you to know, he said, sir, we're going to attack Iraq. And I said, why? He said, we don't know. He said, I said, well, did they...
That's what I just said. Remember, I told you, we don't know, man. It's so weird. It sketches me out. I think about all this. I think about we keep going back to this region over and over again. I mean, it's so weird. It's so weird.
Tie Saddam to 9/11. He said no. He said, but I guess they don't know what to do about terrorism, and so they think but they can attack states, and they want to look strong, and so I guess they think if they take down a state.
Here's a question to take home. How does all of this, right, fit into what's going on in the Middle East now, okay? And then what's the common denominator between this, the Middle East, and Ukraine? All right? What's the common denominator?
It will intimidate the terrorists, and, you know, it's like that old saying he said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem has to be a nail. Well, I walked out of there pretty upset, and then we attacked Afghanistan. I was pretty happy about that. We should have. And then I came back to the Pentagon about 6 weeks later. I saw the same officer. I said, why haven't we attacked Iraq? We still going to attack Iraq? He said, oh, sir. He says, it's worse than that. He said, he pulled up a piece of paper off his desk. He said, I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense's office. It says we're going to attack and destroy the governments in 7 countries in 5 years. We're going to start with Iraq, and then we're going to move to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. I said, 7 countries in 5 years. I said, is that a classified memo? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me.
And I remember reading something literally just a few years after that about how it was connected to countries that at the time did not yet adopt a central bank. And I don't know if you guys remember, but just after Iran adopted a central bank, we gave them that sweetheart deal that we gave them under Obama with the nuclear program. Remember when we were quote unquote regulating the nuclear program? In reality, what that allowed them to do is have access to a level of nuclear resources, and the regulations and the way that we would come out and do the checks and how long the intervals were. It was super easy for them to just get around it. I mean, my impression of that was it was like, hey, look, you took a central bank, we're going to let you low-key be a nuclear power. And that's part of the reason why Trump pulled that back. And it's just like the Inflation Reduction Act, right? They're like, oh, man, he's going easy on Iran. No, your Inflation Reduction Act actually increased inflation and was put extra burden on the economy. No, your nuclear regulation deal for Iran actually gave Iran a lot of leeway, okay? So, man, they play these word games and they think we're dumb, bro.
He was about to show it to me. He said, because I want to talk about it. And I sat on this information for a long time, for about 6 or 8 months. I was so stunned by this, I couldn't begin to talk about it. And I couldn't believe it would really be true, but that's actually what happened. These people took control of the policy in the United States. And I realized then, it came back to me, a 1991 meeting I had with Paul Wolfowitz. You know, in 2001, he was Deputy Secretary of Defense, but in 1991, he was the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. It's the number 3 position in the Pentagon. And I had gone to see him when I was a 1-star general. I was commanding the National Training Center. I had met him one time. He said, if you ever get to Washington, come look me up. They always say that. Well, I was there in Washington. It was a Friday afternoon. I'd visited Colin Powell. He'd given me 5 minutes of his precious time and sent me on my way, and I was bored in the Pentagon. And I thought, I'll just go, who can I see? I think I'll see Wolfowitz. So I called, and up there, he was available. Scooter Libby came to the door. I met Scooter for the first time, and he brought me in. And I said to Paul, I said, and this is 1991, I said, Mr. Secretary, you must be pretty happy with the performance of the troops in Desert Storm. And he said, well, yeah, he said, but not really. He said, because the truth is we should have gotten rid of Saddam Hussein, and we didn't. And this was just after the Shia uprising in March of 91, which we had provoked, and then we kept our troops on the sidelines and didn't intervene. And he said, but one thing we did learn, he said, we learned that we can use our military in the region, in the Middle East, and the Soviets won't stop us. He said, and we've got about 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, because they just destroyed the Soviet Union, or they were about to. The Soviet Union was collapsing at the time anyway, even under its own weight. Oh, man, wild stuff, dude, wild stuff. The greater patterns of history, man. It's so interesting when you start putting the moment in context, right, and seeing how it fits in the largest pattern, the largest system, man. But anyway, I thought that was super interesting. Trump calling out Turkey. How does Turkey throw the wild card into all this? That's kind of wild, man. Like, yo, are they rebuilding the Ottoman Empire? What is going on right now? Yo, it's fun to me, man, to think about, hey, man, we got another player than just the old dudes we're used to, right? Trading blows. So anyway, man, thought you guys might find it interesting. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next segment, man. Have a great day, yo. Hey, if you like what you see, please click on one of these other videos. I appreciate you all. Have a good one.